Hey everyone, this is Finn, and in this tutorial I am going to teach you how to create a simple bouncy ball animation using a squash and stretch method. To create a new file, press Create New from the Adobe Animate homepage. We are going to select Standard, which has a width of 640 and a height of 480. Press Create. Now we are going to start on our first frame, which is our beginner keyframe, by using the oval tool to create a circle. I am going to create a green circle, but you can choose any color you'd like. And now click, hold Shift, and drag a perfect circle right at the top here. It doesn't have to be perfectly in center, but kind of eyeball it and try to put it in the center. If you want to make sure it's in the center, you can right click, go to Align, and then click Horizontal Center, so it looks like I was pretty close. This is our first keyframe, and this is our ball. Now we are going to create a new keyframe by pressing this button right here that says Insert Keyframe. You can do the same by right-clicking on the frame itself and clicking Insert Keyframe. But I am going to press this button here. It automatically inserts a keyframe right next to our first one. And I am going to turn on this button called Onion Skin Select. Then we are going to click and drag. You should feel it wanting to be aligned in the center, but since we have it in the horizontal center, we always know how to make sure it stays. If you feel like you did not keep it snapped to this line, then you can make sure you're about here, cover about half of the ghost circle of the first keyframe, and then if you need to, you can go back to Align and Horizontal Center to make sure that it is completely aligned with the other one. Now I'm going to deselect Onion Skin, and I'm going to scrub so you can see that's just the simple ball going up and down slightly. And notice how when the keyframes are closer together and the motion is closer together, and what I mean by that is if I turn on onion skinning, it's not that far away. They're actually intersecting still. That will make the animation go a little slower and a little smoother. We are actually going to deselect onion skinning and insert another keyframe, and this one is going to be slightly further away. It's not going to be overlapping with the previous keyframe. Let's press onion skin, select our circle. I'm going to make sure the whole thing is selected. Yep, because I didn't have a stroke color. If you do have a stroke color, make sure that you are selecting the entire game object and not just the color. And to turn off the stroke color, click this button right here. This is what it looks like if I have a outline. I don't want an outline, so I am going to select the whole thing by using box select, which is just either of these selection tools, and then you click and drag to make a box. And then I am going to press delete on my keyboard. If I click over here where it says stroke color, the outline of a box and not the solid color of box, I'm going to press this button right here, and it is going to make it so that the alpha is 0, which means that there is no outline there. So since I don't have any outline color at all, I'm just going to select the circle and move down, and like I said, It's going to be farther away this time. Not by much, just about here. Because we want that initial drop to be a little slower, and then as the ball is gaining momentum, we want it to be a little quicker as it drops down. And so frames that are spaced farther away from each other are going to be perceived as going faster. Let's create another keyframe by pressing this button here again. Notice how the ghost outline of the very first frame disappeared. That's because our onion skin range only goes back this far. You can modify it by clicking and dragging it back, and it'll give us a very faint version of the animation here. I'll leave it like that so you can see. We select our ball, and we move it down even further than the previous ones. Very good. Now we're going to slow down just a little bit by inserting a keyframe. And moving down about this much. Let's see what that looks like so far. I'll deselect onion skinning. Right now it is incredibly fast, and that's because we have all of our keyframes right next to each other. At the end we are going to space them out so that it moves a little more slow. But for now you can see that it moves smoothly even though we have that big gap right there. If yours feels like it's too big of a gap going between here and here, I would recommend tightening that gap. If it feels like it is jumping at any point, that might mean that you have too much space there. But when it is playing, if it seems pretty smooth and it just seems like it goes faster, that is the intended goal. Let's add another keyframe. Insert keyframe. I'm going to turn my onion skin select back on again. And this time, move down so that my circle is sitting on the ground. Let's press play. Now we have a ball, and it falls pretty hard and just drops like a rock, and it doesn't bounce. To create the bouncing effect, that is where the squash and stretch method comes in. We are going to add another keyframe. This is going to be actually the keyframe after the next keyframe. If you see what I did there, go ahead and click and drag that keyframe you just added to the frame to the right of it by one frame so that there is a space in the center. We are going to create the endpoint of the squash and stretch. What I mean by that is this is going to be the point where the ball is the most squashed and stretched. You'll see what I mean. We are going to click on the free transform tool while making sure that we are hovered over that last keyframe that we added. Free transform tool. You are going to want to take this origin tool, the little circle that I'm clicking and dragging, and you want it to be at the bottom, right here, the bottom center of your ball. That's going to help us use that as a transform pivot point. And you want to make sure that you do that so that it's way easier to just click this top. We're going to squash it down. I'm going to turn on onion skinning. We want to make sure that we're squashed down half of the original ball. And now, about the amount of that we squashed it down, we want to stretch the ball horizontally. So this effect, we squash down or scale down our ball vertically, and now we want to stretch it horizontally by clicking one of these sides here and then pulling so that the width is about half of the width of the original ball. Very good. Now I'll show you that already is giving us more of a look of something bouncing down and then squishing, and then it's going to bounce back up. But we want to create a transition in between the full ball and the super squashed ball so that we can have that animation be even smoother. Let's right click on this space while selecting the frame here in between these two frames that we just added. Right click and press Insert Keyframe. Make sure that your onion skin tool is selected, and as well as your free transform tool. Move your origin white dot to the bottom center again, and now we are just going to do the same thing, but instead of having it so squashed and so stretched, we are going to go about 50% on that. What I mean is take the top, we are going to squash it until it is about in the middle of the frame before it and the frame after it. It is about half as squashed, and then we're going to stretch it about half as much as well. Right there, so that you see the ghost remnants of the how much more it is stretched in that last frame. Let's test that. I'm going to lock that layer by pressing this little lock icon. And then I'm going to press play. Now you could tell that it's much smoother. It's still pretty fast, but like I said, we're going to fix that at the end. Now we are just going to want to take all of our frames from before and paste them in the reverse order. To do that, click the first keyframe. Let's make sure that our layer is unselected and is deselected. And while I am at it, I'm going to name our layer ball. Select the first keyframe, and then either press Shift and select the last keyframe, or you can click and drag to select all of the keyframes at once. Then right click and press Copy Frames. Now we want to insert a frame, a normal frame, not a keyframe, at the very end here. Select the frame, right click it, and press Paste Frames. As you can see, this is the same animation in the same order. Make sure you are selecting the beginning of the second loop of that animation. Click and drag to select that second replay. It's going to be frames 8 or frames 9 through 16. And you are going to right click on those and press Reverse Frames. There we go. Now, as you can see, the ball bounces down and up. It's still very quick, so I am going to go to the first frame. You can either right click and press Insert Frame, which is good, and then I'm going to go to the next frame, and to show you the shortcut, I right click, and then next to Insert Frame it says F5. So let's try that. Let's select the keyframe and press F5 on our keyboard. There we go, that's going to add another frame. So I'm going to do that individually to each of the other frames. And that just makes it a bit quicker, being able to press the key on your keyboard instead of having to right click and go to that option. But right clicking and going to Insert Frame is just as good. Now I'm going to press the loop button. This highlighted section up here with the arrows, you want to make sure cover the entire timeline. So click and drag so that that blue space covers the entire thing. Then we want to press play. There we go. And that is the first animation I've ever done when I was learning how to animate using this program. I hope that you found this helpful. This is exactly what we are looking for exercise number 1 of the animation exercises, and I hope you have a wonderful day.